the astronauts read out
the gravitational effect of those planets.
Hi, I'm Alicia, and this is NASA Now. When a comet or asteroid is close enough to be called a near-Earth object, just how close is close? We'll find out from our expert and learn why NASA has an eye on the sky. That's ahead, but first, here's what's happening at NASA Now. In November of last year, scientists were treated to a spectacular view of asteroid 2005 YU-55. 2005 YU-55 is classified as a C-type asteroid and measures 400 meters, or nearly a quarter mile in length. That's about 100 meters longer than a modern super aircraft carrier. Astronomers were able to capture these images when the asteroid passed within 201,000 kilometers of Earth's center. That's closer to us than our own moon. Although once classified as a potentially hazardous object, NASA has determined that this asteroid poses no threat of an Earth collision for at least the next 100 years. Like asteroid 2005 YU-55, more and more often, scientists are discovering asteroids and comets with unusual orbits. Some of these orbits bring space rocks pretty close to the Earth and Sun. Fortunately, only a few pose any threat to our home planet. To help us understand near-Earth objects and why NASA is tracking them is Don Yeomans, manager of NASA's Near-Earth Object program at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Hi, Don. At what point does something become a near-Earth object?
Well, a so-called near-Earth object is a comet or an asteroid that is in the Earth's neighborhood. The official designation is if it gets within 121 million miles of the Sun, it's a so-called near-Earth object.
Recently, I saw that NASA revised the number of near-Earth objects. How many are there?
Well, we know about 8,500 near-Earth objects to date, but there are millions more that we haven't yet found. Most of them are very small. So if you're talking about basketball-sized objects, there's millions of them in the near-Earth environment. If you're talking about objects that are several miles in diameter, there's only about 1,000 of those.
Where do most of these objects come from?
Most of the asteroids are in the so-called asteroid belt, which is between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. And there's millions of them out there. And over millions and millions of years, they run into each other. They just smack into each other, and so you get smaller and smaller asteroids as a result. So it's a sort of a cosmic shooting gallery out there.
Does this mean there's a greater chance of Earth getting hit by an asteroid because there are so many of them?
Basketball-sized objects come into the Earth's atmosphere daily. They don't reach the ground, they just cause impressive fireball events. Volkswagen-sized objects come in every few weeks. Again, they don't reach the ground, they just cause impressive fireball-like activities. Large objects, a few miles in diameter or larger, don't come in but every several 100 million years.
Wow, you weren't kidding when you called it a cosmic shooting gallery. So, in your opinion, is an asteroid responsible for the death of the dinosaurs?
I think it's fair to say that 65 million years ago, when the dinosaurs were eliminated, either a comet or a large asteroid, probably 6 miles in diameter, came down, smacked the Earth, caused a giant crater that is still there, 100 miles in diameter, and the debris from that impact threw up debris into the Earth's atmosphere. That debris spread around the Earth, shutting down the sunlight for months at a time, so that it killed the plants that the dinosaurs needed for food.
Can you describe the difference between a comet and an asteroid?
A comet is an object, a small body in the solar system that is made of dust and ices, mostly water ice. And as the object, the comet, gets close to the sun, the warming rays of the sun vaporize the ices and release the embedded dust particles, and that's why we see a comet's tail. An asteroid, on the other hand, is an inactive object, usually a rocky body that is also in orbit around the sun, but it doesn't throw off gas or dust.
So, are there misconceptions people have about near-Earth objects?
Well, usually when folks mention asteroids, they mention them in the context of, well, they could threaten Earth, which is true, but that's very unlikely. What they don't usually understand is that asteroids and comets are important for science because they can tell us about the conditions that were in place when our solar system formed 4.5 billion years ago. Comets and asteroids likely delivered to the early Earth much of the water and the carbon-based materials that allowed life to form. So in a sense, we owe our very existence and our position atop the food chain to these asteroids.
Right now, NASA's Dawn mission is in orbit around the asteroid Vesta. Here's a project to discover the origins of the Dawn mission.
Your students can uncover the history of asteroids, from the earliest discovery of the missing planet to the modern era of robotic space missions like Dawn. Check out History of Asteroids on the NASA Explorer School's virtual campus.
Well, that's it for NASA Now. Be sure to visit our Facebook page and leave a comment. We'll see you next time on NASA Now.
NASA Now comes to you from the virtual campus at NASA Explorer Schools.